Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. We have Christy Chapman, who is producing a few different cannabis products and a long-time medical marijuana patient. We'll be discussing her business and her podcast and more. We have a short but sweet hemp news segment. And as always, let's start off with our infamous dancing cannabis lead.
I feel the force.
Our first hip news story tonight comes from Mississippi. Mississippi's medical marijuana program officially began this week as the Mississippi Department of Health began accepting applications. Applications are now being accepted for patient ID cards, cultivation, processing, transportation, disposal, research, testing, and doctor certification. Businesses and people wanting to apply for work permits can do so. There's one caveat in the process, though. Those wanting to apply for a patient ID card must first be certified by a doctor. But Wednesday was also the first day a doctor could apply for the certification with the state. The physician also has to register with the Mississippi Department of Health. To certify a patient, doctors have to complete 8 hours of medical marijuana continuing education through the Department of Health online system. Therefore, completed patient applications have to wait because physicians' applications have to be completed first. And it can take up to 30 days for a Mississippi physician's license to be approved to authorize medical marijuana, according to Mississippi Tennessee's Fox 13 News. Doctor certification to authorize medical marijuana requires the 8-hour online class. After the doctors are certified, patients need to visit with the physician to get their authorization for cannabis use. Patients then have to go back online and submit that information to the state. They have to wait up to 5 days for approval, and individuals qualify for a card if they suffer from one of 24 debilitating diseases that the medical marijuana program in Mississippi covers. Unlike neighboring programs in Louisiana and Arkansas, Mississippi's program does not cap the number of cannabis business licenses. It includes a tiered licensing fee structure, allowing smaller businesses to participate in the program for lower fees. Medical cannabis dispensaries should be operating in Mississippi by the end of the year. The U.S. Treasury Department is proposing to start collecting data from marijuana businesses from banks, in another sign that the federal government's gradually recognizing the legitimacy of the cannabis market being legalized in a growing number of states. The Treasury's Office of Comptroller of the Currency, or OCC, posted a notice in the Federal Register this week saying it plans to track marijuana businesses as part of the annual risk summary form that needs to be filed by financial institutions. The notice says, adding that the agency intends to start gathering data from banks on marijuana-related businesses for the first time, in addition to other markets of emerging interest such as crypto assets and ATM operators. They collect data about different products, services, customers, and geographies. It's not immediately clear how this information is analyzed or disseminated by the Office of Comptroller of the Currency after being submitted by the banks, but the new notice says the data allows the agency to, quote, better identify those institutions and areas within the institutions that may pose heightened risk and allocate examination resources accordingly, in court. Quote, information on the number of financial institutions that work with cannabis-related businesses is already reported through the Suspicious Activity Report, or SARs, that banks and credit unions are required to submit under existing guidance, and the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, that publicly releases that data on a quarterly basis. The number of banks that report working with marijuana businesses has ticked up again near the end of 2021. Final story tonight, the Washington, D.C. District of Columbia Council unanimously passed a bill stopping companies from firing employees who fail marijuana drug tests. It also banned semi-employers from firing or refusing to hire employees because of their recreational or medical marijuana use. There are a few exceptions, though. Employers won't violate the law if they act under federal guidelines. They also can fire employees who consume marijuana at work or while performing duties related to work. But employment laws and practices requiring drug testing often continue to reflect the past rather than the present. Last fall, New Jersey adopted similar protections for workers. Nevada implemented its own version in 2020. New York State went one step further last year, banning all pre-employment marijuana testing. The new District of Columbia law makes exceptions, however, for workers in safety-sensitive jobs. These include operators of heavy machinery, construction workers, police and security guards who carry weapons, and medical professionals. While the District of Columbia already created protections for city employees who use cannabis, its council cannot bar federal government and discipline federal employees for marijuana use. If an employer violates the law, an employee has up to a year from the date of noncompliance to file a complaint. Employers could face fines of up to $5,000 and must also pay the employee's lost wages and attorney fees. District of Columbia, adults over 21 could possess up to 2 ounces of marijuana, give away up to 1 ounce to another person of age. They can also grow up to 6 cannabis plants and possess smoking paraphernalia such as bongs and rolling papers. It's still illegal in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., to sell marijuana, use cannabis on public property, or operate a vehicle or boat under the influence of cannabis. That's the end of our hemp news segment tonight. Now we have our interview with Christy Chapman. And if you or a loved one are looking for help locating a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit, then we have a referral service. You can call our office about that or other questions regarding cannabis at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Here's our interview with Christy Chapman. Keep working to restore hemp. Good night. I'd like to introduce Christy Chapman. Welcome to the show, Christy. How are you?
Thank you, Paul. I'm wonderful, and thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor. You know, I know you're working in a lot of different ways, and you just recently, today as we're recording this, we did an interview on your podcast on Weed Speak, which I had seen more and more of this podcast platform recently. And so I figured, well, this is a perfect time to have you as a guest on here. So you have a couple of cannabis companies as well as your podcast. And we were just briefly discussing the seltzer line that you're about to come up with one of. What's the name of that company?
So our seltzer line that is coming out is Voes, VOES. And we have the Delta 8 ready. We should have our first shipment in next week, and we will hit the ground running. We will be having CBG and CBD added as well, and Delta 9.
So these are for the Washington State dispensary market? Is that what you're going to be marketing through, or do you have other businesses in mind?
I have other businesses in mind, Paul. Dealing with the legal system up here is a little bit different. In Washington, Delta 8 is illegal.
Okay.
So we work more with legal states, of course, but we're working in Oregon, and we're working with some bed and breakfasts in Oregon that we'll be having them there and in stores. So as far as Washington, and this is really, just the fun of learning compliance and laws and why we pay our counsel. In Washington, topicals are okay, tinctures are okay, but gummies and edibles are not legal. So unless they're in the dispensary, of course. So it's just a matter of working with Oregon and other states with the Delta 8 and just focusing on the CBD in Washington.
I see. And so do these come in a bottle?
We have 12-ounce cans.
12-ounce cans, okay. So do you have any samples around? I bet you don't have them at arm's length, but we got to get some pictures here.
I usually have one sitting on my desk, but it's a little late. And so I'm ready to move on to other things.
Yeah. What are these seltzer drinks like? They're sugar-free. I like that because I don't need any more sugar in my life. And so,
Yes, being sugar-free was really one of the things that was so important to me. Uh, I am still all about health and wellness, and to be able to have a seltzer that somebody who might have intestinal issues or gut issues, it is just so helpful on a daily base to drink a little bubbly and get some CBD, or my preference is CBG, and add that with a Delta 8 drink, and you're very focused and out of pain.
so these are VOS. Do you use the letters as the name, or do you call it Voss?
It is not Voss, it is Bose.
Vos. Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
we don't want to get in trouble.
I don't know. Is there another product out there? I don't know.
There is
Maybe.
a water company, VOSS.
Ah, okay. Well, that's different for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So we are
So you
Bose.
a longtime medical marijuana patient now for over a decade. Do you want to talk about how medical marijuana entered your life and how it's helped and transformed things?
You know, Paul, it's been such an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful that activists like yourself made it possible so that when I really wanted to look at alternative medicine, I had options because activists like you had done the work. So thank you for that. I appreciate that so much. When I became a patient, I had been on an opiate regimen with my doctor and had to take myself off of work because I was, uh,
How on an opiate regimen?
I went all the way up to the patches that they'll give you. And, you know, quick story, Paul. I went into the doctor one time and I said, you know, there's something wrong with my stomach. I'm having XYZ symptoms. And he said, well, according to your chart, you're refusing to take your evening time pain medicine. And I said, well, I just need it for
Help
the
your
morning.
stomach?
Yeah, sorry. And he said, if you took that evening dose, you wouldn't feel the pain.
Oh,
And I thought that's not the right answer. So I started looking into alternative health modalities and medicine, and I got to the point where I was at home. I was very, very sick, and I had gotten off of opiates when I could get cannabis in Oregon as a patient, and that I could do it legally. So I was very hungry for knowledge, very hungry to find out what would work for me. And ironically enough, my neighbor came over and said, "You're sick like me." And I said, "What do you mean? How do you know?" And we talked about it a little bit. And he showed me a vape pen. And he said, "Here, try this. The color will come back to your face." And, you know, my first thought was, oh no, we don't do that. You know, my ex husband was in recovery, and that wasn't the lifestyle that I was able to live. So I asked the neighbor to come over and we would discuss it.
and about what period of time is that? That's
2015.
okay. Okay, not that long ago.
Yeah.
7 years or so.
Hmm. And 2014, actually. 2014.
Okay.
So, so the neighbor came over, and surprisingly enough, my then husband said, you know, go ahead and try it. And Paul, I was sitting in a chair and couldn't move. My abdomen was extended as if I were about 7, 8 months pregnant, and had that gray slate on my face. And took 2 puffs of cannabis, THC, and I looked at my husband then, and he said, "The color is coming back to your face."
Just like your neighbor had told you.
Just like that. So I was in a stretch in my health where I had lost over 100 pounds. And I was really uh, clinging to my health. And so when I started using cannabis, I actually was going into the emergency room at least 3 times a week for over a month. The doctors didn't know what to do. They couldn't stop the excessive uh, gas issues that I was having. And they put me on the over the maximum amount of medicine that I was supposed to be on. And I finally, after using the vape pen, and it's still not taking care of my needs, I wasn't getting as much relief as I truly needed. And so I was still going to the emergency room, and not for any pain medicine, but just for them to give me large doses of their medicine to stop the process that was happening. Uh, so I called a couple of friends in Salem, and said, "You know what, guys, I'm going to the emergency room again. What can I do?" Paul, as you know, Oregon is a great community. And these 2 guys got in their car, drove up to my house, and set out every kind of oil, every kind of cannabis modality you could imagine. And someone said, "Well, how do we know when she's had enough?" Paul, I went from sitting in a chair, not able to move, ready to go to the emergency room, to literally standing up, waving my arms, telling a story, laughing. And they all looked at each other and they said, "She's well. Our job is done." And, I became a big fan of oil, and learned more about it, learned formulating and of different products, but just really embraced the plant because she healed me so much. Every time I turned around and learned a new cannabinoid, uh, I had better health.
So you have your seltzer company, FOS, and what is your other cannabis company?
Emerald Days. And Emerald Days was a company I started in 2017, along with the Balm Body Care, which is an award-winning topical line out of Oregon. Was runner-up, and so the 2 Emerald Days and the Balm Body Care, and then we have VOS as well.
And so are you rolling both of those out in Oregon and other states where you got to choose state by state depending on their laws? They change all the time though too.
They You can put your head down in your computer and work hard for a while, and uh, be on a roadmap, and compliance changes. So we just have to be very willing to pivot, stay compliant, offer the best products, and working with banking has been a real issue for us. And I would like to say that I'm very, very proud. I worked with a bank for 4 months, to be honest. They did not want to give banking to the inhalers. Um, so after educating them, we ended up with the first hemp bank account in Washington with this particular bank. So
Right.
I
I know a lot of banks charge a very exorbitant fee to open the account. So it's like a $500 application fee and then $500 per month for each account. And
Lots of
that's
fees,
just the start of their fees.
lots and lots of fees.
Do
But
you have subject to that kind of fee?
you know, I was really blessed, Paul. I just got really blessed. If anybody needs banking in Washington or Oregon, please call me. I'd love to help.
Okay. I have been through 20, literally 20 different bank closures since 2007. Once I had 27 accounts closed at once with Wells Fargo, personal accounts, uh, business accounts, political accounts, because we were working on the initiative. But literally, I have 20 different stories. But out of those 20 different closures, and the doctors I work with have had their accounts closed as well. But out of those 20 different bank closures, 18 times they wouldn't tell me why. They said, we don't have to tell you why we're closing your account. When you open your account, you sign an agreement that says we can close it for any reason or no reason at all. And at the very first time it happened in 2007 with US Bank, the bank worker there told me, well, they've been telling several times, they told me our account was the best account at their branch, including this first time, because we grew quite rapidly and had a lot of cash deposits. And anyway, so, but they told me he had only seen it happen once. This was in 2007. He'd only seen it happen once before, and it was with uh, a strip club that was suspected of prostitution. So I thought, oh wow, this is kind of like the Twilight Zone. Only recently have the banks, like number 16 and number 18, told me it's because of medical marijuana. But the other 18 bank accounts, closures, they wouldn't say why.
They're very sticky, and I can't even imagine going through 20 accounts. I worked on banking.
Just the times they were closed. Like I said, each time there were multiple accounts involved. You know, once, like I said, 27 accounts.
And they freeze your money too.
Well, they give you a period of time before they freeze your money. Usually it's 30 days. Once I had Bank of America freeze it, and after 3 days, and I was really angry because at that point I had 100 employees, and I just had my payroll checks out, and so they sent it out on like a Thursday or Friday. Came into my office on a Monday. I was in line with my wife, 3 kids, and mother about to go into Disneyland. And so I got this call from the office. They're closing our accounts tomorrow. So I sat on a bench in Disneyland for about 3 hours and called the various banks. Again, they said, you're the best account at our branch. They told me to talk to risk management in San Francisco. They said, no, there's no way, we're not closing your account. At that point, I'd always had 6 figures in the account, and I'd never bounced a check or anything. And so, but the next day, they did close my account, and they marked 17 of my payroll checks as return to maker. And I still have employees that say I bounced checks on them because that happened. But so I was angry, and I found out that the president, that had come from the president's office in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I called the president's office in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I told him what I'd gone through and how I was going to sue them, and they had my money, and my payroll was just out, and I'd been through this before, and other banks had always given me 30 days, and you guys got to give me 30 days too. And the next day they reopened my accounts, and they did give me 30 days. And the thing is, in that 30-day period, you go in, you close the account, right? So they can't close it on you, and you can take your money out and move it around. But with 3 days notice, when I was out of town, that's just impossible. So
It is definitely a lot of hard work, and I'm very hopeful that the educating that you've done with banks and having a good standing account with banks just has helped them to, listen and
Still depends on the change in federal law. So they have inquiries from the tax authorities, the drug authorities, all of these people that they suddenly have to report to while it's a Schedule 1 narcotic under federal law. And so that should change. I was hopeful until recently that the federal Congress would pass, the Congress passed the MORE Act, the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. But the Senate hasn't. This was the second year that the U.S. House of Representatives has passed that. The majority leader of the Senate and our own Oregon Senator Ron Wyden and New Jersey Senator Cory Booker have all said that they support legalization and a bill is coming. In February, they said it was coming in April. Well, now it's June, so I'm not as hopeful as I was in March and April. I thought 420 would be the day, but we'll just have to see. I guess as long as the Republicans can control this, and I think of them as the fascist party of America. As long as they can hold this up, they will, I guess. Even, it's all about money and power, unfortunately. So we continue to fight that.
Well, you've been fighting for a long time, Paul, and because of that, banks are opening up and legalization has come a long ways. I found it so interesting that when we spoke earlier, you were talking about how you thought that legalization was going to happen in 5 years, and you thought that in what year?
78, 79.
78.
All thought it was because 10 states had decriminalized. Jimmy Carter had come out in favor of it. And then Carter's drug policy advisor his name was Peter Bourne. He had snorted cocaine at an annual party for the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Law. And he would not come out in favor of marijuana legalization. So the director of NORML at that time, Keith Stropp, outed him in the press and said, he had cocaine at this party. Keith Stropp, that messed up his life and messed up NORML. And it set reform back. I don't think things started moving forward again for 35 years, really, from 79 till 1999 at the earliest. And we didn't start seeing legalization till 2012. But anyway, that's, none of us anticipated Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan and the Just Say No movement at that point in time in the late 70s. It was a different world then, a lot more people used marijuana at that period of time, probably than any other period, even today. And so there was a larger percentage of young people at the time, and marijuana was embedded in youth culture. So we've aged a bit, but things are changing again on a global scale. Happy to see that. So
it is.
So tell us how you got into business, how you decided to start formulating products. So you have your seltzer company, and let's talk some more about your company.
Well, I always have that company around because I use it faithfully. The Balm Body Care, and this is our roll-on.
I see. And does that have CBD?
It is full spectrum CBD. I go right up to the legal limit. I believe in THC being a very, very important part of topicals. So how I started was I was going to school. I knew that working in the emergency room and the ICU was going to be really difficult for me with the health issues that I had. So I went back to school, and I was smoking cannabis and lowering my opiate use at that time. And I learned about salve. And it was the first time I had been out of pain in so long. And so I finished the jar. I remember thinking it cost how much? But I knew I was willing to try anything. And I told the bud tender when I went in, love our bud tenders. I shared with him, I'm having a difficult time studying and smoking at the same time for my pain control. You know, what am I going to do? And he was the one, I wish I remembered his name, but he was the one who said, oh, you need to go down and speak to that guy who has salve. Well, after I used the jar, I went back to get more and I couldn't find him. And I said, well, is there anybody else who makes it that I can get it from? No, not too many people really make that, but a lot of people like it. And I just knew that I really wanted more. So I started researching it and spent a lot of time making topicals. Uh, I was actually ill when I started it. And Paul, I don't think I've ever shared this, but I was so sick uh, when I started making topicals that I was literally crawling on my elbows in my kitchen to get from one side to the other. I was in that pain. So after making it, a wonderful gentleman at church gave me a couple of garbage bags full of cannabis and said, I think you're on to something. This should be enough product for you to learn what you're doing. And so I just continued to work with it and learn. And then I got interested in inhalers as a respiratory therapist. Inhalers, of course, being the only modality that crosses the blood-brain barrier immediately. And CBD inhaled by a meter dose inhaler also gives a larger relief from, say, an asthma attack. We're able to measure the volume that is coming out of somebody's lungs after they take albuterol and after they take a CBD inhaler. And the CBD inhaler allows more airflow to come in and out of the lungs by a measured flow meter. And so I really, I believe in them. They're very, very helpful. Quick story. I tried the inhalers, Paul, because I was really interested in asthma. As a respiratory practitioner, that was my life. How to make it better for them. And when I found that CBD in an inhaler would give them more airflow and not increase their heart rate, I knew that I just had to push that rock up the hill. And it's a wonderful modality. Of course, no heat, no smoke. Lungs are very healthy and protected. So I started that company. And yeah, once you start realizing that things change people's lives, you start making things for them as friends. And then you realize how their life changed. And so then I think, oh, well, let's change, people with asthma with the inhaler. Let's help people with gut issues.
Yeah, cannabis has long been used for asthma. Usually it's been smoked. I think it's brilliant to pair it up with the inhaler idea. So you mentioned albuterol, I think is how it's pronounced, and that's suspended in some other. When you inhale it, it's not pure albuterol. There's some agent, and is that the way it works with CBD inhalers? Is it suspended in another highly volatile something that's going to evaporate immediately and help carry the CBD? How does that work?
Yes, actually, and that's a very good question, Paul. Uh, our inhalers actually use the same carrier that an albuterol inhaler uses. So our carrier gas is FDA approved. And so it allows the particle size to be a very small micron, so it can be deposited into the lung very deeply. So yes, we use the exact same carrier as albuterol, and that is HFA-134A.
Okay.
And so we wanted to just make it as clean and something that patients would understand. And the fact that we've only changed one molecule from what they were taking, and it will in fact give them more air without their heart rate going up. We've just taken out all the bad stuff.
And what do you call the product again?
It is a metered dose inhaler.
And your brand?
Chapman Health and Wellness.
Chapman Health and Wellness. So does it say that on the inhalers?
It does. One moment.
Okay.
I would love to share this.
Please.
So this is the inhaler.
Okay.
The box.
Yeah.
And then, so that is a Chapman Health and Wellness product. And then the inhaler itself. And then, of course, just open shake.
Just like with the albuterol thing that
exactly
anyone who has an asthma attack has to deal with. And so are you an asthma sufferer?
I am not. And that's part of
Respiratory therapist, you were working with a lot of asthma patients.
Exactly, Paul. And so when I read the research that CBD was a better bronchodilator than albuterol, I knew that I had to be a part of that. And so I ordered the product to be made, and I worked with a small group, and I started trying it just to see how it would affect me, how it felt in my lungs. Paul, as God is my witness, I tried it for 1 month, and this was at a period where I was not able to keep weight on. I had lost 110 pounds and was struggling to eat. I used the inhaler and went to the doctor 30 days later. I weighed in, and I was 50 pounds heavier in 30 days.
That's a lot of weight.
And I can say that to you because you know what cannabis does to us.
Yeah. So is that just CBD? You said it's a full spectrum CBD.
So the inhaler is just CBD.
Okay.
And so it helps with nausea. It helps with spasms in the gastrointestinal area. And Paul, the beautiful part about it is I had been seeing my physician for 15 years, and they knew me very, very well. And when I went in and they weighed me, my doctor sat me down knowing that I was taking CBD products, topicals, soda seltzers with THC to be able to eat. I would take everything into him. And he looked at me and he said, "What did you do different last month?" And I showed it to him. I said, "I did this." And he said, "Keep doing it." So my physician has encouraged me to continue it. And I have just continued to have nothing but better health.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. So you just have it in CBD right now. Are you going to make any other or try out like CBG or CBN? I know we were talking about a little earlier.
Yes, we are working on it. Uh, it is an expensive
Yeah,
project, and
I can.
so I try to push the needle as far as I can. But yes, we are coming out with a CBD, um, a CBN. I'm sorry, a CBN, a CBG, and I actually have 20 formulations between a 1-to-1 and a 1-to-20. So working on that, and yeah, we just want to bring out good medicine that everybody can use and help to bridge the stigma. I know a lot of people, Paul, that are not able to or don't desire to smoke cannabis or take a tincture. But it's kind of funny that they're very comfortable taking an inhaler, which, Grandpa took it. Susie took it when she was 3 because she had asthma. So it's a very friendly modality for people who are afraid of CBD and THC. So, with that said, what I'm really excited about is the Delta 9 that we're using in hemp. And so looking forward to implementing that into the inhaler as well.
All right. So do you have a website for Chapman Health Products?
Yes, sir, I do. I have banking, we have merchant processing, and
All right.
they approve the inhalers after a lot of work. Uh, we can be found at www.chapmanhealthandwellness.com. We have topicals on the website. We have the inhaler on the website. And next week, we will have the Delta 8 drinks for those that live in the right state.
Okay. And hopefully, as the laws change, you'll be able to sell them nationally and internationally.
We hope so.
And in terms of the seltzer drinks, let's go back to that for a moment. So are the seltzer drinks, is it just cannabis extracts and seltzer water, or is it a combination of anything else?
No, it is just a regular seltzer water that has been formulated with a nano CBD or a nano CBG, whichever one we're working with. And then it's just a matter of formulating it and making sure that it disperses properly throughout the entire drink. And the taste, making sure that it's not too powerful. We tend to be a seltzer that is not a drink that you take a sip of and it's overwhelming, the bubbles and sweetness. So we tend to be a little bit lower on the bubbles, which allows someone to enjoy it without all the bubbles in your nose. And yeah.
Is there a separate website for the Vose seltzer products? Is that still at chapmanhealthandwellness.com, or is that at another site?
Vose will actually have its own website, and it is complete. We're just waiting on printing for our first batch.
I see. So it's right on the edge of breaking in the market then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're actually hoping to get into some hotels in Portland and
Uh-huh.
just making it available in places where, somebody my age maybe doesn't care for a cocktail, but you know what? I would love to have some CBD before I have my dinner.
And it's 0 calories, right?
0 calories, no
You know,
sugar.
alcohol is very high in calories. I mean, you look at a martini and you think, oh, it's just vodka, and it's like 400 or 500 calories in that drink.
Seltzer,
That's why.
they're very, very healthy, and it can be a mixer. You can add to it if you like. But a Delta 8 seltzer and a Delta 9 seltzer can lower your eyebrows and make for a nice evening.
I'm very interested in the Delta 9 seltzers. That sounds fascinating to me. And I'm not usually one to use edibles and that sort of thing myself. Usually, I like my volcano vaporizer. That's always been my favorite, as you may recall.
I like that volcano as well. That was fun.
So you've been to our after show party back in the old days. How did you first hear about our work and the the television show and the after show party?
Well, coming into the community and starting my company, I went to a lot of events, met just wonderful, wonderful people. And I became very, very fond of some friends of yours, Eric and Stephanie Llewellyn. And
Yeah.
I keep telling her that her adoption papers are in the mail. I just absolutely love those two.
They are great, and they're great for everybody in our community. That's for certain.
They're wonderful people who are out to help and educate and encourage. And I just really took a liking to them. And of course, Stephanie did your camera back.
We hope to someday get back into our studio. We'll see how it goes. It's
Will.
like you aren't in Portland. It's not Friday night at 8 o'clock uh, as we record this. And it just makes it so much easier to get quality guests. I'm sure people who watch our show know we have people coming on all over the world. Sometimes Bill and I will be here at midnight here, but it's 9 a.m. in Norway, or
Wow.
11 a.m. here, but it's 7 a.m. in West Australia or something. So it definitely expands the pool of guests, which I think improves the quality of the show. I miss not having the teleprompter that's in the studio, though, because everybody expects you to look right at the camera as you read the news.
Right.
So I have to glance up and down, but that's not the end of the world.
Well, as a fan of your show for many, many years, I certainly hope that you are able to get back in the studio and have that Friday night get together. And, you bring people together, Paul. And that's one of the things that the community just loves about you. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. So you have recently got in, as we mentioned at the start of this, the podcast arena. And so I just, as I mentioned earlier, was on your show earlier today. Tell us about your podcast and how you came to create a podcast.
everything just happens so organically, and we're all desiring to educate and to help people who are coming into the industry to learn, and also to support those that are already here. We all know how difficult this road is, and so reaching out and saying, how can I help you, to other people who are trying to bring health and wellness to the world. And so I was asked to do a podcast with Wendy Edgelove, dear friend of mine. And Paul, she said to me one time, can you do this podcast? And I said, oh, sure. And I thought for sure I would have a guest. And right before the show, I found out that there was no guest and that I would be the only one speaking. I got so nervous.
Yeah.
Well, 20 minutes later, after I started the podcast, I didn't want to stop. I had things to say. I had people I wanted to encourage. I had people that I wanted to bring into this circle of elevating and lifting each other up, as Wendy had done to me. And so I did a few for her, and then she came to me and asked if I would, pardon me, if I would do the podcast on Weed Speak. And I said, absolutely. So bringing bringing people together is one of my favorite things to do. And so to have a guest on and to be able to say, you know, well, where are you? Is there anything that I can help you with, that maybe I've gone through something that you're coming into, and there's, you know, just an exchange of love and respect for the plant. And so it's been a wonderful platform in that I love building community. So
So if somebody wants to see or listen to, I guess, listen to your podcast, where do you go again?
they can download the Relevant app. And once you get in there, you can make a user ID and you can join podcasts. There's wonderful people in there. Erie Bliss is in there, and she does podcasts that does breathing techniques. And we have guests from the industry. We go on each other's shows, and it's really to just, again, build community where people can ask questions and learn and continue to grow. And it's also, it's not censored. And so it's not that somebody would post something and then be banned from Facebook, say, for 30 days. So this is a privately owned app, and the owner is a cannabis enthusiast and has family members as patients. So they just really want to get the word out and share history.
I just downloaded it yesterday, and so I saw there were two forums, it seemed, that were said weed in them. Weed Speak, but Speak is spelled with two E's, and Weedopedia. And so I didn't try to see other cannabis names like Cannabis or marijuana. I don't know if there are any other forums out there using those terms, if it's all just weed. Do you know?
There are some others using different vibes, is what we call them.
Okay.
So I also have Chapman Health Vibe, and that's my company, my person where I put my information, and I have freedom to put up my products. I have freedom to do shout outs to my friends who are doing great things. And then after putting all of that into Chapman Health Vibe, I visit Weed Speak, where it's our main platform in the app, and brings in more people. And yeah, they've been very helpful. I've just been really blessed and having a good time.
I noticed my friend Tom Lorimer, sometimes called Farmer Tom, has a show on there as well. He invited me earlier, but you wanted to go to the show quicker, so I think his show this week was, he's in the deep South. He says
Yes,
it's teaching people how to roll joints.
I love that guy. I do. He's
Great. He's a
he's
lot
just
of
he's just always moving around, teaching and loving on people, and
take care of the earth.
he does. Just such a great man.
Yeah, yeah. So we're probably about ready to go here. Let's go back again. Your website is chapmanhealthandwellness.com,
Correct.
and you'll find your topical products and your inhaler products.
Yes.
That's fascinating. The Voss or Vose, excuse me. Vose seltzer water. The website's not out yet, but we'll be looking for it soon.
Next week is our plan, and we actually will be at a festival in Oregon June 18th and 19th in Veneta.
Okay.
A festival out there. So if anybody happens to hear this, make sure you stop by our booth and get something cold to drink.
What's that festival called? It's not the Oregon Country Fair, is it?
No, it's the one Joshua Stroud does.
Okay.
He does it every year. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but we're going to have a great time.
Okay. So you were from Oregon before you moved. Now you're in Washington. How long have you been in Washington?
Well, 2.5 years ago, I moved up here to get married to my sweetheart. And prior to that, I had been in Oregon for over 40 years.
That's a long time. Yeah.
I say my feet have webbed.
All right. All right. Well, we are working. Last week's show, we talked to Honeybee and Lefty Grimes. Lefty is in New Jersey, but Honeybee's here in Oregon. And she got a permit for the state capitol for July 10th. And we're trying to establish July 10th as a national medical marijuana day to focus just on medical marijuana. You know, July 10th has kind of been focused on concentrates and dabbing, but it seems like putting medical marijuana there on top of it would be a good idea. You know, I think, what do you think?
I think bringing medical cannabis to any spotlight is a wonderful thing. I believe it helps break the stigma and lets people see why we use it. So
Yeah.
good
Maybe
for her.
to spread it to Washington State as well. I think now we're up to 7 or 8 different states. So I'll reach out to some people there and try to help that materialize a little bit.
Excellent.
Well, thank you for being our guest here, Christy. We've had Christy Chapman with Chapman Health and Wellness Products and the VOS seltzer line, which I look forward to seeing out there. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, Paul. I was just going to say, I will make sure that you get some of those very shortly.
Okay, if you're coming through Portland, let me know. And is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just thank you so much for having me. And it's just been a joy to spend time with you today. And you keep up the good work, Paul. You are an incredible man doing incredible things. And I have enjoyed watching you through my journey. You've been a great not mentor. It's been wonderful watching you and learning. How's that?
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, keep working at it and we will restore him. Good night.
Good night.